Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that break. If you're just tuning in, we just finished talking about the new kickoff rule in the NFL. I am very excited about that. We broke down all of that, how that might affect the future in the NFL. It is only a 1 year trial policy, but we talked all about that. In the segment before that, we broke down the biggest story in sports right now, Shohei Ohtani and his situation with former interpreter Ipe and the gambling situation there. In segment 3 here, we are going to continue to talk about football. We're going to talk a little bit about JJ McCarthy, uh, the most controversial name in the NFL draft right now. I'm going to talk about him, give you my thoughts about the outlandish things I've been hearing about where he's going in the draft. And in segment 4, we're going to transition into the NBA and talk a little bit about their gambling situation over there. But before we get into JJ McCarthy, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to GSMC leave a tip or donation with a message. It'll pop up on the bottom of the screen there. Be up there for about a minute. We'll have a little discussion about what you had to say, a little discussion about a little discussion about what you had to say for you, me, everybody else to see. We appreciate everything that you do give. Once again, that link to leave a tip or donation is gsmcpodcast.net. But like I was saying, we're going to talk a little bit about JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy, the most controversial name in the NFL draft right now. The quarterback out of Michigan. He just had his pro day the other day, and people are saying it's the greatest pro day they've ever seen. No one has ever done a better pro day than JJ McCarthy. Come on. Are you serious? It's ridiculous for people to talk about him like this. He has an arm. He threw in shorts. It doesn't, pro days are important, all right? But when you're trying to evaluate quarterbacks, unless they have a really bad pro day, if they're supposed to be an NFL quarterback, if they have the ability to play in the NFL, they better have a good pro day. If they don't have a good pro day, they're off my board. But if they have a good pro day, it doesn't really change how I think about them. It's expected. It's important, don't get me wrong, because it helps weed out some of the people that are not going to be NFL caliber talent. All that this says to me is that he has the ability to play in the NFL. Oh my goodness. Shocking. JJ McCarthy, the guy who has been getting so much hype all off season. It's crazy to me. I heard today on NFL Network, one of the insiders say that he's been hearing the most common answer from executives of who Washington is going to take number 2 overall in the NFL draft isn't Drake May. It isn't Jaden Daniels. It isn't Marvin Harrison Jr. It isn't Michael Penix. It's JJ McCarthy. If JJ McCarthy goes number 2 overall, I won't have the words to describe it. I will be on the ground laughing because you know what? That would be the most Washington organization thing they'd ever done. You know, they got a new owner, they got a new GM, they got a new coach, and they're still messing up. They are still being Washington. That would be the most inept move I've ever seen. And outside of Caleb Williams, honestly, none of these quarterbacks really move me all that much. Caleb Williams is the only guy that I'm going to sit here and say I think he's a lock. These other quarterbacks, as hyped up as they are, I'm not in love with them. It's better than last year. I think all of them are better than most of them are better than last year's quarterbacks, as far as prospects go. Now, obviously, C.J. Stroud came out and did his thing. He's going to be better than everyone except for maybe Caleb Williams. But if we're just going by evaluating prospects, I think these guys are better prospects than everyone in last year's class. But JJ McCarthy, you can't just look at a pro day and you can't just talk, you can't just have his answers at the NFL Combine be like, oh, he's going to be he's going to be the second best quarterback. You have to go look at his numbers. And I've said this a whole bunch of times. I know this for people that have watched, but he only threw for over 300 yards one time. One time all season. I know he won a national championship, and I know that that offense was more run heavy. I do. But you can play in a run heavy offense and put up good stats. His accuracy numbers were awful. They were so bad. In a college offense with some of the best talent in, you just won a national championship, right? It wasn't JJ McCarthy that did that. Sure, he helped, but it was the defense, it was the running game, it was the offensive line. If your main argument for why JJ McCarthy should be the number 2 quarterback in this class, the number 3 quarterback in this class, whatever, he should be a top 10 pick like everyone is mocking him to be. And what I'm probably going to mock him to be, because I want to be right in my mock, but it irks me because you know who else was a winner? You know who else they said that about? Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is out of the league after one season. AJ McCarron. AJ McCarron is starring in the XFL right now, the UFL, excuse me. Winning is an important trait to have, but if it's your best trait, you're not a starting NFL quarterback. There are very few situations that I can see JJ McCarthy being good in. Very, very few. If he goes to the 49ers, I think he'll ball out. Because the 49ers are loaded. And I think any half-decent quarterback could ball out there. You saw Jimmy G. And we're not even going to start talking about Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy is better than Jimmy G, but I don't think he's an elite quarterback. He's just a good quarterback. Great, maybe. Good quarterback. But JJ McCarthy kind of falls into that same range as Brock Purdy for me. I don't think Brock Purdy, I don't even think he falls into that Brock Purdy range, honestly. He doesn't. But if he goes to the 49ers, I think he'll be great. If he goes to Washington, oh my God, he's going to suck. He needs a good offensive line. He needs elite weapons. Washington has Terry McLaurin. They have Jahan Dotson, but it's not weapons that are going to do it. If he goes to Minnesota, I think he'll be good. I don't think he'll be great, but I think he'll be solid in Minnesota. They have a good offensive line. They have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. That is a pretty stacked roster. You put him on a team that is stacked, he's going to do fine. He's not going to be world-beating, but he'll be a competent NFL starter. But I don't want to pick a guy that could be a competent NFL starter with the number 2 overall pick. I want to pick a game changer. I want to pick a guy that I know is going to change the face of my franchise. You don't get the number 2 overall pick that often, hopefully, if you're a competent franchise. You're not sitting there that often. And to throw away a pick like that on a guy like JJ McCarthy, I think is ridiculous. There are so many better options. So many. JJ McCarthy is my QB5 in this quarterback class. He is not good. And you guys can come back and I might have to bite my words on that. But unless he goes to a system that's stacked, he's not going to be successful. He needs to go if the Packers draft him, it's going to be a colossal failure. If the Raiders draft him, it's going to be a colossal failure. If the Vikings draft him, there's a chance it could be okay. If any other team other than the Vikings that are rumored to draft him, Washington is in that rumor. I guess you could throw the Patriots in there, the Giants, maybe. The only team out of those 5 or 6 that I just named that he would have any shot of being good on is the Vikings. So he better hope and he better pray that the Vikings draft him. They better hope that the Vikings trade up or that no one drafts him until 11 and he gets to go there, because if he goes anywhere else, it's going to be a disaster. He is not worth a top 5 pick. He is not worth a top 3 pick. He's not worth a first round pick. I don't get it. I really don't. It happens every year where you have a guy that just comes, I guess, out of nowhere and gets all this hype. And evaluating quarterbacks is hard. It's probably one of the hardest positions in the entire sport to evaluate because so many things that make a quarterback look good are different in college than they are in the NFL. It's a lot quicker in the NFL. It's a lot different play style in the NFL than it is in college. And it's so hard to see what skills are going to translate. JJ McCarthy just does not do anything that makes me think he's going to translate and be a great quarterback at the NFL level. Nothing does. It really shocks me. Because it's not even that I'm angry that he's going to get drafted, okay? People make mistakes all the time. People are wrong all the time. I'm wrong all the time. Not all the time, but I'm wrong sometimes. These NFL scouts, these NFL GMs, the big hype machine around the NFL, around the NFL draft, it gets out of control. You know, it's a train with no brakes sometimes. And it latches onto one guy, one or two guys every year, and it takes them rolling. And sometimes it works out, sometimes they're able to steady it, sometimes it doesn't. And most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time it blows up in your face spectacularly. You know, I think of Mitch Trubisky, I think is a really great comparison to JJ McCarthy, honestly. It is just shocking to me how much hype this man is getting. And it's nothing against him. I'm sure he's a great guy. I hope he succeeds. I really do. I want everyone that ever gets into the NFL to succeed. I'm pro player, whatever. Unless he's playing against the Giants, then I want him to not succeed. But I just don't see it. I really don't. And I don't get what people are seeing in there in JJ McCarthy. There's nothing there that screams top 5 pick on tape. I think if you're going to take him at 2, you'd be better off not taking a quarterback. If you're Washington, go get someone else. Don't waste your second overall pick on him. Go draft a Michael Penix in the second round. You know, I don't get it. I don't believe in him. I don't think he's going to be a good NFL player. He needs to be in the right situation, and if you're taking a guy at number 2, you're not the right situation. Anyway, in our next segment, we are going to transition out of the NFL draft, into another story about gambling. It's kind of a 2-track show here today. The NBA is caught in its own smaller gambling fiasco. So, stick around for that. We'll be right back on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.